Hello friends and welcome. Today I'm going to show you some cool warning spots for the new map in patch 7.33c. This will not explain when or why to use every single observer. That is in the old warning concepts video, so check that out if you haven't seen it before. I won't repeat myself here to save some time. Today I'm just going to show you spots. But one new concept I do want to tell you about is because the map is so much bigger and because there are limited sentries, even though they just got their radius increased, right? It is impossible to check the entire map. So now, especially with the chaos of the new patch, it is more important to just make your way to an area without being like super obvious that you're warding, and place a decent observer right outside of like cliff areas. You know, if you want to put your observer like anywhere here, I don't care. It's not so specific like it was in the last patch that was so figured out like, oh, this spot is magnitudes better than this spot, right? There's a couple places like that and I will tell you about them, but now it's just like, yeah, anywhere over here, you're fine. Or you want over here, anywhere over here is fine. You're going to spot the farming rotations in this top of the map, and you're not going to get caught by a sentry here. Even if the enemy wants to find it, right, they could put it here, and they could put it here. This is 2 out of their 8 sentries, and there's still 90% of the map, and they're still going to miss this spot, which is what I'm going to tell you to use instead. So it's really difficult to check the whole place, so it's really important right now to get a good spread of vision, especially the areas you want to play, and you're going to use that vision to spot where the enemy supports are trying to place theirs, because otherwise both of you have to do this like totally blind guessing game on this massive map. So it's more about being sneaky and being observant rather than memorizing the exact locations to place your wards and your sentries. Having said that, now let me show you some places you should remember. In the laning stage, many people are no longer putting observers in this area or in this area because the map is more compact here. So any sentries you use to block or unblock camps, their radius is larger, and so you'll notice just random sentries cover this whole area. So you might get lucky and have your observer survive, but you can't really guess where people are going to put their sentries completely. It just kind of comes down to personal taste. And so this whole area is very likely to randomly get your observer killed. Down here, this observer is actually quite strong if you're able to 1v1 the support and maybe the enemy core as well. But I see this observer die within 2 minutes like every single game. It is so difficult to protect this observer that if you want to use it for first blood, I'd honestly probably just kill it afterwards because it's probably going to die, and D wards are worth more XP now. So for the most part, a lot of people are no longer putting observers here. They're using it instead to spot twin gate rotations. So you could put them right up here. This will obviously spot them as they pop out of the gate, which will let you know they're down here. But this area is like a cliff, like you might find like over here. You should only use it if you know you're prepared to defend it, or if it's really early in the game and you're like, they'll never think I'm going to have one there. So if you do want to put your first observer there, sure, but this is not very useful information for the laning stage for either team. It is only good to spot rotations, and if that's all you're really worried about, then that's fine. But a sentry placement like this, I think will become very common to spot the cliff, spot this area, because besides this spot, this whole area is pretty solid, right? You'll actually see a little bit more into the lane, you'll see the rotations, but pulling it further out, somewhere like here, I think is really good, because now this one actually sees into the lane and spots up to Roche. So even though you don't see them come out the twin gate, they will probably walk through here to do the gank, right? And so you're going to see that. If they try to be really sneaky and go all the way around the Roche pit, they're taking like 20 extra seconds. So whatever, if they successfully get you, honestly, they earned it, but they've been off the map for like 20 seconds running around Roche. So this lane's probably going poorly that they came from. And obviously we can't see if they go this way. That's where like this has the benefit of seeing people come out and knowing which way they go. But depending where your lane is, what you're worried about, this is honestly really good. And if you're worried about sentries like this, just push it out a little further, which will see further into the lane, but not spot this area, and that's what you kind of lose out on. So instead of playing it over here, if you're worried about sentries in that area, you can place it somewhere back here. This will spot this whole Lotus Pool area. It'll spot people coming out from over here, or if they come through the lane, right, this path, you're going to see them through there. And if they're coming through the jungle, you kind of have 2 options, right? One, the core's probably playing here, and the supports are in the jungle, so you kind of see that rotation happening anyways. Now that it might cost the support their life, but you know the core is gonna live, so you know it's fine. Or if you do think a rotation's coming through because heroes are missing and you know you've already placed this observer here, then your team's gonna play on this side. And if they do start to try to like make a gank through here, you can always retreat back through here or retreat like down through here depending on like what's going on. So this is where a lot of observers are being placed right now for the laning stage, is to see like this stuff rather than this stuff. Down here, it is exactly the same, so anything up here, great for spawning rotations. This side's probably a little better since you can actually see a little further into the lane. But anything here will spot these. Otherwise, you move down to here, which is a little more useful, but also likely to get caught by something like this, which is why we can then push out even further. Something like this will spot people coming from right there or through here. Spots well into the lane, gets out of this like common sentry placement unless they push it up. Otherwise, you could put something like down here, which that's kind of hiding it. So over here, kind of cool. So you can see like over here into the lane a little bit and down here as well. So as they come out of the twin gate, you'll probably spot them. So this is a little sneakier, but the vision is more restricted. And then if you want to do an approach like this, then this will allow you to spot the lotus pool. Actually, I should probably put a little more to the left so that we don't overlap too far here. But you'll see this whole area, anyone who's like rotating through here or popping out through this tree line, and you'll see into the lane a little bit. Mid lane wards are mostly the same, just anywhere along here or here is going to be fine, but the Dire has a cool new one, which is as you sneak your way over here at the beginning of the game, or maybe you just like walk up here if you want to, but I think through this way is going to be sneakier, less likely to get spotted by an observer over here. You can actually put your observer on this ledge over here, and it's actually possible to walk through here, but does it look like that? Kind of, but it also looks like it's blocked. So many people don't know that they can do this, and so it's going to be really hard to find an observer like this, which allows you to see into this area for anyone like bottle refills and making their way back to the lane, or the mid coming to farm this camp. You can see that stuff. Anyone with a jump can like jump in and kill them. You get to see this area, so you can do the creep aggro, and you see the power rune. So I think this is a really nice spot. It is still caught by like a sentry here, but it requires, from a mid laner from just doing this, now they're gonna be like, oh shit, I think it's up here. Or they have to spend their whole time like walking all the way around, get this, and then walk back down, unless they have some kind of mobility or anything like that. So I think this is a cool new ward, or anywhere on this ledge, but besides that, it's all the same for the mid lane. From here, let's just go section by section. So starting here on the bottom of the map, as the laning stage breaks down, or I mean, you can use any of these observers at any point of the game, just depending what you need to see. But like back here, spouting this outpost is pretty useful. You get to see these two camps. You get to see like twin gate rotations. It's good for like the Roshan stuff. People are doing a lot of like, oh, should I go top or bottom? While I decide, let me farm these camps. Let me go through the twin gate, all this stuff. So observers on like this half or this half are really nice. Plus, depending what team you are, spotting the outpost teleport rotations, or whether it's safe to teleport there or not, is really good. So just anywhere in this area, again, if they do want to check this area, right, there's not some sneaky spot that's going to like totally avoid everything. I mean, you kind of can. You can try to like put it like back here. You're just going to get worse vision, but less likely to get caught, right? But just where they put their sentry, I don't know, right? It could be like over here to spot up there in this area, or they think you're back here. So like in the end, I would just kind of like put it more towards one of the edges, perhaps, if you want to play it safe, maybe further away from this. But ultimately, just trying to sneak your way in here and hope they don't deward it, I think is going to be fine. Behind the tower is still fine if you want to, like, you're working on taking this tower, wards in this area. This one, only if you're going to fight and defend it. It's a cliff spot, just like usual. So if you know they're going to like sentry in this area, then observers here have been working out really well for me. Over here, because it's so close to the tower, many people aren't thinking to check it, but it does spot some nice areas, right? Sees this camp, sees people TPing in and moving down here to farm. So you may not see them farming besides this camp, but you'll see them like moving towards one of those areas. That can be nice. You can put it like over here if you want something similar. You kind of see like when they go from this side to this side, but I do think this vision is a bit more restrictive. Over here kind of works, but I haven't really enjoyed putting observers here unless I know they're like really restricted to their map and this is one of the camps they're trying to like sneak out to farm. Then I've been putting observers here, but otherwise, like, I just find it's a little too deep and a little too restrictive. I'd rather see like paths as they move like this way or this way. And that's why like further out here I think is better. Moving more into the middle of the map for this quadrant, anything along this ledge is going to be fine. You're going to see a lot of nice information and be out of this common sentry. But of course, if they do put it down here, then they're going to get this whole area. Something further out here can kind of work, right? This is kind of sneaky, again, unless they're going to like put their sentry here because they think something's in this area. But I'd say this is less likely than this area. So something over here, really nice. You can spot people farming that camp. You can kind of see mid rotations. This one's not bad. If you want to push it out a little further, then you can see the bounty rune and the same rotations, maybe not the camp itself unless you cut a tree. Yeah, anywhere here, also works. This whole area I think is fine. This area, So a lot of people are putting the sentries like in here, and there's no point in putting any observers along these ledges because they're strictly worse than a cliff ward, and they're going to get caught by a cliff ward. So nothing along these ledges is any good, except for this corner right here is possible. Be very careful. Put it at the very edge. A lot of people just put their sentry like straight in the middle of the cliff, and they will actually miss this observer. But if they put their sentry more on the lower half of the cliff, then they are going to get this. So instead, you can put it on this ledge right here is fine, or closer to this outpost. Anywhere along here is going to provide pretty solid vision as well. If you have a way to cut trees, you can cut this tree and then place it here. If you don't cut the tree and just put it here, like, this vision's actually not that bad. So this is kind of sneaky if you don't want to like give them a hint that you cut a tree. But if you do and you cut this tree, this provides great vision of this area. Moving over here, a really good one when you're sieging this tier 2 tower is right here. You don't have to cut any trees for it. You can see into the trees, so you can spot teleport rotations. So your team can just position in this area, and you'll be safe from like rotations coming over here. You'll know when they're coming into here, and just like have one hero like kind of stand in this area to spot like movements through here, and that'll be really nice. If you are willing to cut the tree, then of course your vision will just get much better seeing into this area, and the more trees you cut, you know, the better it is. But you know, the more trees that are cut, and the more suspicious it is. So I like this spot because you can use it without cutting any trees. Another one you can use without cutting any trees is further back here, which will spot this pathway, and this camp. And like this area and this area, there's a lot of sentries right now that are going like right here or right like up here. People checking these cliffs areas, which are good, right? This provides a lot of solid vision. So if you want to use any of these, it's fine. But as people are taking guesses at where to check for observers, many people are putting sentries in this area, and you know, sometimes this tree line down here. So I've actually been avoiding this area, even though I think there's a lot of good observer spots around here. I just think a lot of like random sentries that people are putting to guess this area kind of like overlap in this middle area. So I think like something here is really good, or like something on this outpost, because I think a lot of people are forgetting like outpost doesn't provide true sight right now. So like something like this has been nice, and then sometimes along this ledge. But I think this is another one where people will come and just put like a sentry kind of in this area, since if you put it here, you'll block the camp, of course. So like they've either been putting it like this to spot this stuff, and you can kind of see the gate. But if they do this, you know, what can you do? You're always just taking your bet, your best bet. Got a spot here that's not too bad. You see the power rune. You can see down here, depending how you place it, right? You can kind of see like down here, or you can see up this high ground. So depending what you want, you could use this. I haven't really used it that much myself though. There used to be a popular spot around here for sieging this tower and sieging high ground, but now with this tree line here, I think it's not really worth it. But if you do still want to use something like this, especially if you're trying to take this tier 2 tower, you might as well put it on this cliff up here, I would say, since you see very similar stuff, and it'll be a little harder for the enemy to find it. And if you cut any of these trees, then you will start seeing into the jungle camp, and that's kind of useful. When you're sieging the Radiant, you can put an observer down here now and see the tower, so this is kind of useful, but it's kind of hard to place this without being spotted. You can use it as a Radiant defensive ward if you want, even putting it like a little further to the side as well to be sneakier, since you don't care about seeing this area as much. So this is new that you couldn't really do before, and is less likely than probably this area to be spotted. I won't talk about this area too much since it's mostly the same as last patch, but of course the cliffs, you know, only use them when you are prepared to fight for them. This sentry with the increased radius does cover both sides, so if you're de-warding this area and you know it's not up here, maybe consider more careful placement of this to make sure you get both left and the right. If you want something sneaky, you can actually place an observer like over here. And if they sentry on this cliff, it doesn't provide the vision to spot this observer, and this observer's, you know, pretty decent vision for this area. But of course, if they do put an observer or have some kind of high ground checking spell, they might grab this, so be careful in those types of games. Otherwise, I've been choosing something like along here instead, or over here. I think is pretty solid. Over here, if you want to be like really sneaky and see like less of the map, but you know, maybe survive more, and you kind of see down into there. But people like tend to put their sentries like somewhere around here. So if you want one to really survive, this side's probably your best bet. Still got a sneaky spot somewhere in here to spot the power runes and some general rotations in this area. Anywhere behind the tower is still going to be fine if you want that kind of vision. Over here to push into here, an observer here is pretty nice because you'll see back here and you'll see the tower. So if you're the dire side, if you have extended cast range, you can place it, but without it, you can't. Like if you place it here, you don't really see all that much. So you want to place it further out, but the Radiant can see up to here, which means regular vision or regular cast range heroes have to step out to place this observer, and then that's going to get scouted. So you need extended cast range, or you need to be like Monkey King, jumping on the trees and placing it from there. For the Tormentors, if you want your observer to survive and see this area, something back here can be good, especially if you're doing really well in the game and the enemy team has to try to like sneak out of their base through like the defender's gate. Then something like this is good because you can see them coming out, and this is the least likely area to get checked because a lot of people are putting sentries like in this area or this area to spot this high ground. You know, maybe a sentry on the cliff and then another one like down here. This is all really common, and it covers a lot of good sentry spots, like over here, over here. If you don't think they're going to check here, or it's early enough in the game, you know, go ahead. But as the game progresses, I'd say like an observer down here is pretty good. Maybe push it up a little further so you can see the Wisdom Rune. But yeah, instead of this cliff, you can put something out here. This one's pretty solid, and especially if you push it more to the right, you'll see a little bit into the lane, so that's kind of cool. You'll see like people moving up and down. I think this one's pretty good to set up for a Roshan, and if they put a sentry here but they don't like walk through this tree line, they're not going to see this, and because it's on the cliff, when they're coming out through here, they're not going to see it either. You could cut this tree to put you know, something in this area, but I think this one's strictly better, even though it's within the range of the sentry. I just think if people aren't checking for it, they're not going to get it. But if they see this tree cut, you know, kind of suspicious, I feel like they're going to come check it. If you want to just cut it for fun and like fool people, then go ahead. Preparing for Roche on this side, something like over here is really good to spot the Lotus Pool and anyone coming up from here, because if you're the Dire, then the Radiant has to come through here or teleport in through the Twin Gates. So kind of put like an observer here to spot people moving in, and then you have someone posted up here. You kind of spot a lot of the common areas, and maybe like another hero standing over here, or you like stand right here in the corner to kind of see both. I don't really have some godly sneaky observer spot for Roshan for either side for any of you. Like this one's probably my most sneaky Roshan ward. Right now it's all about just like controlling the area, and observers you have will probably get killed, but it'll help you win the fight in this area or not. So honestly, if you're just trying to play this area, probably just like put something up here and then have one person stand here. If you're the Dire, if you're the Radiant trying to control this side, then this observer becomes all that much better because you'll spot this Twin Gate and you'll spot this outpost. And so if you want to push it even further out, that works. Or if you're only worried about the outpost, then, you know, put it out here a little sneakier and just have someone stand up here or have someone stand over here thinking about the rotations. Otherwise, you know, like stuff here, you know, kind of sneaky, but with the sentries being so big, like there really is a good chance they'll get anything here. So you just have to control the area rather than depend on like a sneaky observer, unless there is a spot that I've missed, in which case let me know. We can probably go through the Dire side a little faster because a lot of it is the same as the Radiant, same concepts, but just on the Dire side now. So like things over here are good, things over here are good. Here is not too bad. Something like over here kind of sees all this stuff, but you kind of see the least camp, so I haven't really been using this one all that much. I would just avoid the cliff if you can, and then you saw it at the start, but I think this one's really nice because it spots up here, spots over here, and many people don't realize you can do this. Over here, I have not been using it very much unless I know this is like one of the only places they can go to sneak farm, then like somewhere along here or here does work, but I haven't really been using it. Behind the tower, sure, if you want, you know, any of this. These open sections provide a lot of vision. Just avoid the, you know, the cliff itself, and then I mean that gives you so many options, you know, like anywhere up here, anywhere over here. There's tons of useful like vision that sees large chunks of areas and camps and rotation paths. For this area, the cliff, of course, put it when you want to fight here. If not, I would avoid it. If you're going to put a low ground sentry, many people are checking these cliffs and oftentimes putting it up a little higher, but actually you want to make sure you put it low enough to check this area because you can put observers here, and you'll notice on the right side you get some pretty solid vision on the left and the right. On the left side you get a little bit more restricted vision, but I would actually say put it on this left side because it's really hard to check that. It's like a cliff. You need to bring a courier because you can like step over here and see some of these right side wards, but on this left side you can't fully see them. So like you kind of see like one or two here, but actually there's two other observer spots I have up here that really hug this tree line. So these two are impossible to see without bringing a courier or having some high ground checking spell. So even if they do put their sentry low enough, they cannot see those. So I recommend these a lot if you want some kind of observer that's going to survive for a very long time. But if you want better vision, then put it more on the right, and you can kind of hope that they're just forgetting to put their sentry low enough. On this side, I think it's more common to check this bottom ledge than this top ledge, but a single sentry does cover quite a lot here, so just be careful. I would err for like something along here, or instead of putting something like on this ledge, put something over here. I think you see very similar information, if not better, and a lot of people aren't checking this area quite yet. You'll get to see the camp, you get to see this pathway, and you'll see like, as long as you're careful how you place it, you'll get to see a strip over there as well. So I really like this spot compared to anything in this area. Or up here is a lot sneakier, and if you can cut a tree, or you just think the enemy's going to cut trees, or you notice they've cut trees, then somewhere back here will allow you to see in the camp and this choke point. This tree is probably a little better to cut because you'll actually see like more in this area. Without cutting any trees, then I do think right here is not bad either. I've used this quite a lot and have them survive for a long time. And you'll get to see like down here, you get to see the outpost, you get to see the camp. So something like back here is pretty solid. And if you cut any of these trees, you'll get some nice vision into the lane as well. Over here, your river wards, right? Anything along the ledge is still going to be good. So like these are fine. I would actually opt for like something in here though. I think it's pretty sneaky. Obviously you don't see like further into this side if you want that. But I think a lot of people are putting sentries like in this area and like sometimes over here to spot this stuff and forgetting to check this area. So you'll see the power rune, you'll see this whole general area along that line, this middle section where Roche used to be. So you can put it on the lower half of the tree to spot the power rune, to spot this whole general area. That's pretty good. This top half can see into this area a little bit and further into this side if you want that. Or you can cut the tree and get both. But of course, now that the tree is cut, people might get a little suspicious. If you don't want to use this section, you can cut this tree and put it over here, which will provide even better vision, but again, possibly be more suspicious. Now, I kind of like putting something here even without cutting a tree, because even if they think something is here, it's pretty hard to check, right? Like you put a sentry down, but you kind of need high ground vision, so you got to like stand over here. And if you have this tree up here and they try to put their sentry down here, the tree is going to block vision on this side. Or if they like put their sentry over here, then the tree is going to block the vision on this side. So they're going to need some way to check up here. And for a lot of people, that's just walking up here, but then they can't actually hit the observers that they see. So they need to have someone else come in and help them. So I've kind of enjoyed putting observers here even without cutting trees. But since many people don't know the map, you can cut the trees and just hope they don't realize. This part of the map also didn't change all that much, but the sentry does now check all the way down here and all the way up here, whereas before you could kind of like put it at the edge of one of these. So I haven't been using these spots as often. I've been erring for this side, kind of along this staircase, or like maybe over on this side. This pathway, I think, is even better than it used to be, since now there's actually areas on the map to play on this right side. So if you put something here, I think it's a little better and harder to find. Of course, you don't see quite into the camps, but you kind of do see them move between the camps, and that can be enough information. Otherwise, I go for something over here in case they put any cliff sentries, which now naturally check all the way back to this staircase, but they might put it on the low ground, which will cut this, but then leave this staircase open. And if you're like sieging the high ground or trying to protect this area, then I think this one is okay. But again, depending on the context, you might want to check this area versus this area because of that. Moving over to this Tormentor section, same deal. If you put it further back, it's less likely to get caught. This whole area, right, sentries on the cliff are very common. If you want to put one over here, it won't get caught by a cliff sentry very easily. Otherwise, just like anything in this area or this area is pretty solid if you don't think they're going to check. But if they do check, right, they can kind of cover this whole thing. And that's why I think back here is the most likely to survive. If you have extra cast range, you can place a very nice observer in this area to spot into the base, into this back section. But without cast range or without something like a smoke or Monkey King, you can't get here without being spotted by the Dire. If you're the Dire defending this area, you can put an observer here, which as you can see is pretty limited vision, but it's pretty hard. Like even if the enemy has a sentry placed, you can't actually walk into this corner without cutting a tree. So they won't know that there is a observer there unless they, place something there or have a courier or whatever. Setting up for Roshan on the Radiant side, same idea. Anything that spots the gate and kind of the pathway over here can be pretty sneaky, although this vision is like pretty slim. You got to really be watching the minimap to see them like pop through for that split second. Otherwise, somewhere down here is probably safer. You saw this earlier, but it's that same idea. You place an observer like that. You have someone stand here for the twin gate. You have someone stand here maybe instead, or maybe even back here is fine, and you capture this watcher, right? This way you can break smokes without being fully in vision. This is like one way to do it. Otherwise, if you're maybe the dyer setting up for this and you know the Raiden's going to come this way, then maybe you want an observer on this high ground spot to spot the twin gates, or maybe you want your observer like further back here. If you want to have like a sneaky spot, then like somewhere over here and you can like see the entrance of Roche. You can put things like down here, but again, if they're worried about invis heroes, they're going to put sentries here. And like sentries like right here, right, cover a lot of the areas and do see in front of the Roche pit. So if you are going to put it like on this low ground, I would hug like this edge back here or this edge back here. But this is not going to be generally useful. It's only going to be useful very specifically for the Roshan fight. So if you think you need that, then go ahead and place it, but otherwise I don't really find much value to it. Here's a random observer I just found as I was preparing to end this video. I guess this is kind of good if you're playing against a gem. It will spot the power rune, kind of like see this area. It's a little limited, I guess, but probably pretty difficult to find. So there you go, a bonus one here at the end. Those are pretty much the best spots I have found so far. If I've missed anything and you know of one, please let me know. This map is huge. I'm sure there's some that I just haven't found out yet, or we could have like gone into more detail of like, oh yeah, right here versus here. But like I said at the start, it's really just about avoiding the most common areas and trying to get like a decent spread of vision. Now, if you want to know more about that concept and, explain why you might use certain observers here and at what time of the game, please watch that video I made before on warning concepts. I will link it in the description. It covers a lot of techniques and ideas that I see mistakes on all the time. So check it out. I could use the views. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in another one.